All right, you guys, welcome back.
What's up, guys?
What's up, babe?
What's up, babe?
What are we talking about tonight?
Parenting.
Parenting.
All things parenting. Yeah.
Oh man, I feel like this is going to be a long conversation.
This is your area of expertise.
What?
Yeah, you're like super dad.
I'll take it. Did you guys hear that?
I'm not lying. I think you're great at it. I think that this is going to be awesome.
Cool. Well, parenting is something that I think we're definitely passionate about. And
we ain't got no choice.
I mean, if you listen to our last episode, you'll kind of realize that, or you won't realize, you'll know that becoming parents changed our lives. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely something that we appreciate and we're grateful for, and I don't think we'll ever take for granted. So yeah, let's fucking talk about it. Sounds good. What exactly are we talking about when it comes to parenting?
Well, I put a little question box on Instagram, and I asked parents what they were struggling with, and I actually got a ton of responses.
That makes sense because like everything is a struggle.
Everything is. And the reason I even asked this question in the first place was because last week in particular for me was one of the harder weeks of being a parent. Although I find that it's like a roller coaster every day. It's like, I think I got it, and then... Hold on a
second. Before we get too far into this episode, I just want to say that if you're watching or you're listening because you're a parent, then fucking cool, you're in the right place. But if you're not a parent, don't go anywhere because it might just be entertaining to hear what we struggle with. And
still good info at the...
Yeah, you could learn something from it, and you can just hear about our problems and fucking make fun of us. So
yeah.
Either way, this could be a good episode for everybody.
Just for sure. Say that. Yeah, you don't have to be a parent.
Anyways, last week.
Yeah, so last week was like one of the harder weeks for me. I was really struggling with like figuring out how to help with Cruz, with homeschooling and managing our time, and then balancing Stevie on top of that, and then being pregnant, and then thinking like, how the hell am I going to do this with 3 kids? So my emotions were just like really up and down last week, and so I was curious what other parents were doing, and I actually reached out to a few of my girlfriends that I have that are like my mom friends that I talk to, and I was like, what do you guys do when this happens, or what do you do when that happens, or what are you guys doing for this? And it just got me thinking, I'm like, man, I can't be the only person that's like really struggling right now. So I put this question box up, and I was like really surprised because so many people responded, and I just thought it'd be a good topic to talk about.
That's crazy because I would have thought that you're the only parent struggling.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, let's get into it. Is there any specifics? Because I mean, I can tell you, I can just start shooting from the hip with all the crazy things that happen and the challenges.
It's hard.
It is.
It's fucking hard, and I want to apologize if I breathe heavy. It's because I'm pregnant and I literally get out of breath just talking, which is exhausting in itself. But I don't want you guys to think I'm just a heavy breather. I'm pregnant.
She's a mouth breather.
I'm not a mouth breather.
I just want to start off by saying that as a parent, I think like the most challenging thing for me is parenting guilt. And
oh my god, yes, I agree completely.
I've talked about it on the Dadcast podcast, me and Colin's podcast. So if you guys are interested in like the parenting specific stuff, you can go check out our podcast, the Dadcast, because it's pretty good. We talk about like dad's perspective and stuff. But for me, it's always been parenting guilt because, you know, our kids are crazy. They're both Sagittarius babies, and whether you believe in astrology or not, they're fucking wild. So they fit the bill of Sagittarius kids. Meaning we're always on our toes. Like I have good energy, I think. Like she even thinks I'm a child sometimes.
No, I have 3.
They fucking smoke me.
Or 3 fire signs, so I get it from all ends.
They give me a run for my money. Yeah. In the sense that like they're go. They're never stop. You know.
Yeah, it's like they're part kid, which makes them naturally wild and curious and energetic. But then they're also a fire sign on top of that, with just like endless amounts of energy. They need very little sleep, very like nap time. They don't care about nap time. They don't care about going to bed early. And there are some kids that are, because I've seen it. I mean, you get a cancer baby and they're ready to be in bed by 7 o'clock. So it is different. And we're gonna talk about astrology on our podcast because that's just how we are. But it does make a difference. And so sometimes I wonder, like, is it just my kids that are this crazy, or are all kids this crazy? Like, I don't think I was that energetic and wild and like crazy.
Well, I think
when I was younger.
I think we have all things working against us when it comes to our kids' energy because they're both Sagittarius. I mean, like you said, kids in general are pretty crazy. Yeah. We live a very sporadic lifestyle with no structure or routine.
I wouldn't say no structure because we're working on it. We have some structure.
I mean, we I guess every family has some structure, but we're not like the by the book family that's like, okay, this is bedtime, this is,
Yeah.
you know, we sometimes our son
we're a
stays
little
up
bit
till
more free
11.
rein.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like we don't have all these routines in place. We don't have that structure that most families I think have. So I think that allows our kids to be a little bit more wild, and you know, they're not used to going to. Stevie is, you know, she's good. She goes to sleep at the same time every night. But Cruz is kind of like, it's just a battle with him because well, Trent will be like, all right, it's time to go to bed, and he's like, wait, what? I'm already.
Like, no, we're starting the movie.
So we kind of live a sporadic lifestyle. We're self-employed. We travel the world. We just get up and go sometimes. So our kids are.
Yeah, it's not like I have to even be up at a certain time every day.
Yeah, they're just kind of bred into that. The boy came before the girl, you know, like I think if the girl came first and then the boy came second, I think the energy would be a little bit different, but he's a wild child. He's like leading the way and she follows in his footsteps. You know, I think if we had a boy that was following his sister's footsteps, might be a little bit easier, but yeah, so they have that. And yeah, I think that, you know, those things adding up, it just, all kids are energetic, but I think our kids have the perfect recipe to be wild children.
Yeah.
You know, and just like they're like peak wild kids, you know?
If anyone who is listening right now has babysat our kids or spent time with them or family, friends, whatever, you can attest to this that Corey and I we're not being dramatic when I think most parents will be like, yeah, my kids are nuts. But I don't think people realize how nuts our kids actually are. But we also spend a lot of time with our kids, which I think is different too. Because most people have their day-to-day jobs that they go to. And so and kids go to school, you know, so that's a break. Even if it's at school and it is something that's, you know, you're supposed to do, it's still a break. It's still a little separation of time.
That's kind of one of those things that add into our kids having the perfect recipe to be wild is they're always with us too. Yeah. You know, we went to Thailand with Cruz for 3 months while she was pregnant. No babysitter, no daycare, like no help. It was the 3 of us in another country, 6 other countries for 3 months. And then even when we are home, you know, one of them was in daycare and one of them's full-time homeschooled. So not only are they very energetic, but they're with us a lot.
Yeah, and it's nice having Stevie in daycare. That's a huge help for sure. But even just Cruz is like a lot. And that's kind of where I was struggling because Stevie and I, we are very like, I don't know, compatible. Like we get along really well. We play together and she can chill. Like I can put her down next to me and watch a movie with her and she'll relax for a little bit. She's really extra wild when Cruz is around. It's Cruz that is literally like from the minute his eyeballs open to the minute they close, he's bouncing off of walls. So energetically, it's a lot harder for me to get on his level because I'm much more of a calmer person than that. So last week it was him being home and he's home. When he's home all day, it's kind of like he gets restless and stuff. So it's just, he's the one that I kind of struggle with more than Stevie, you know? And she's gone for a good portion of the day, so it's definitely not that challenging. But yeah, he's the one that kind of gives me a run for my money, and it makes me question, like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, how am I gonna do this with another kid, you know?
Yeah. You know, all that being said, though, I don't want this to come off as a negative thing because that's one of the things that we love most about him is his wild nature. Say that.
Like, he's the funnest kid ever, and he's just so curious.
He's a blast. He's the life of the party all the time. He always wants to party. Like, we're kind of scared for him when he gets into high school age, even though he's not going to be going to high school. Boy. But yeah, he's going to be the... He's a
good time, man. He's a good time.
He's gonna be the kid pulling his pants down and spreading his cheeks in front of everyone just because it's fucking funny. You know, like that's his personality.
We
love him for it. You know.
Yeah. But there's just no off button, and that's the only.
Yeah.
You know, it's for him. It's playtime all day, every day.
Yeah, kind of going back to what I was originally saying is, parenting guilt is there's a lot of it because I think every parent can probably attest to this. I think we've all experienced it in some way, shape, or form. But it's that moment when you've had a really rough day with him. He doesn't want to listen to anything we say. We get to the point of, you know, being horrible parents and name-calling and just basically losing our cool and losing control because he's pushed us past the point and, you know, there's tension between him and us and him and you know, he's not very happy with us, we're not very happy with him, and it's a bad day. We've all, as parents, I think we've all had those horrible days with our kids. And then before you know it, they're asleep in their bed.
That's like the worst. Or yeah, if
You're
they're in bed and you're like,
you're looking at the little motherfucker and reflecting, and you're like, dude,
you're so fucking much. Why are you such an asshole?
Yeah, like I wish that I could. And I've actually done this before. It's been a long time since I've done this, but I've actually woken him up after he went to sleep at night to play video games with him, because I'm like, dude, I can't finish the night like this. Like, this is too bad. Like, we were supposed to have fun, and I've woken him up, and it actually was a pretty bad idea, because then he wouldn't go back to sleep after that. But you guys know that feeling I'm talking about.
I know
and
exactly what you're talking about.
You're not a parent. Let's just say that we try our hardest. We try our hardest, and it always seems like every other parent's doing a better job. It seems like we can't do enough, or we can't do it right, and for some reason, it's like our situation is just worse than everybody else's.
You just sit there and just like you're beating yourself up over and over about it, and then you feel bad, and it's like I'll cry. Like I'll always cry about it.
I've cried. I've looked at my son when he's sleeping and just broken down, because I've come to the conclusion that I'm fucking up as a parent. I'm like, whether it was justified in my head or I was at the heat of the moment at the time, I know it's wrong, and I've said it since day one that I'm supposed to sacrifice for my children. They should never have to sacrifice for me. Like, my kids never in their life should have to sacrifice for my well-being.
Right.
Like, that's not what we brought them into this world for. It's so we can take care of them. It's so we can show them the way. It's so we can practice patience. It's, I'm pretty sure that our kids came into this world to teach us patience. Because naturally her and I don't really have a lot of patience. Maybe she does more than I do. I'm not a very patient person at all. So they're like forcing me to develop that skill.
See, I would totally disagree. Not totally disagree, but like, that's one of the areas for those of you who don't know, like, Corey is known for being very impatient. But
I like to go fast.
Actually and hard. In parenting, that's the one place I do feel that you have patience. And that's one place I feel like I almost am envious at times, because I'm like, how can he, like, I don't know. Like, I'll look at Cruz and talk to Cruz like he is my equal. And I expect him to have a conversation, understand and grasp what I'm saying, and you'll like slow it down. And like, I'll see it happening in your head where you're frustrated, but you'll like take a deep breath, step back, like, all right, bud, we gotta do it this way because this and that. Whereas I'm just like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And that requires skill to be able to do that. And I just feel like with parenting, because it's so important to you, I think that's the one area that you are way more patient than you give yourself credit for.
No, I think it's the only area that I'm really patient in at all. That and my job. When I'm training clients, I'm extremely patient. And I think it's because both those situations, training clients or parenting, are basically things that I signed up for, in which I know that I have to present myself a certain way.
Right.
With my clients, I have to present myself as a professional. I have to be patient with them. As a coach, you cannot be impatient with people. Otherwise, you're a bad coach. Like, you're gonna do a shitty coaching job. So I've kind of accepted that role, but same thing with a parent. Like I said, it's my job to sacrifice for him. So when I'm getting frustrated because how he's acting, like, one thing I always try to remind myself is that he's 6 years old. And I know you and I have talked about this before, but we've held him at a standard that is not...
As if he's our equal.
As if he's our age or our equal, where he should understand things the way we do. And the reality is, he's 6 years old.
He's going to understand it like a 6-year-old.
Yeah. And it's funny because he's done things before to where at least he'll be like, did you really think that was a good idea? And I'm like, babe, at the time, he's 5 years old. Of course he thought it was a good idea. You know what I'm saying? But I don't blame her either, because I think it's very normal to look at somebody and be like, are you not thinking? Like, did you think that made sense? But we have to remember that, yes, he did think it made sense. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done it,
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the hardest things about parenting, too, is, like, looking at your kids when they do something fucking stupid and realizing that they're not doing it just to spite you. They're not doing it just to piss us off. They're literally just experimenting in life. Like, they're learning life as they go. He's only been on this planet for 6 years. We've been 30-something years, so he's a little bit behind in that regard. And I think that's where the patience comes from, is I remind myself that. Because he'll do some shit sometimes where I'm like, fuck! What are you doing? And I get mad, I get frustrated. I do have a hard time schooling him because of patience, because I think I got a great example of where like this whole thing I'm talking about right now is just a perfect example. And it was at the gym one time, and he embarrasses me at the gym all the time because he says things to trainers that he shouldn't. He acts around like, you know, he's very inappropriate around them, and he's also, you know, always wants to like chat with them and hang out with them when they're there trying to work. And it gives me a lot of stress because I'm like, dude, my trainers are here trying to run a business. He's coming up and bothering them.
It's too comfortable.
They're trying to make money. They're not just employees at a job. Like, they're trying to run their business. Mm-hmm. I can't let him go distract them, you know? So there's one time at the gym where it was a rough day, man. He just wasn't listening to anything. And I took him to the office and I was like, I got stern with him. I was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what did I tell you? What did Daddy tell you before we came? And I got pretty upset with him and he started laughing. And I was like, that just kind of like sent me over the edge. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Are you laughing right? You think this is funny? And he just kind of like giggled and smiled and was like twirling his body. And I'm like, instantly just hit me. I'm like, are you nervous right now? And he kind of like smiled at me and then like shook his head because I could tell by his body language, like he wasn't having fun. He was laughing, but he was like awkwardly turning his body and he was nervous. And I'm like, are you laughing because you're nervous? And he's like, yeah, I'm kind of scared right now. And I'm like, dude.
Yeah, I'm kind of
fuck, man. Like, so it's just a good reminder, though. And, you know, after that, I hugged him and I'm like, I'm so sorry. If you're ever nervous or if I'm ever, like, making you feel uncomfortable, tell me because it's never on purpose on my end, you know? But it just goes to show you that they're in a different stage of their development than we are. Mm-hmm. They understand far less than we do, and they have so much less experience than we do, to where you do gotta hold them to the standard of their age.
Yeah.
And it's hard because it's been a long time since I was 6 years old. You know, I don't know what it's like to think like a 6-year-old. All I know, though, is that I don't think he's doing everything just to spite me and just to piss me off because he fucking hates me. Yeah. But that's what it can feel like sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that, it feels a lot like that when your kids are just disobeying you and, you know, mocking you and doing things that you don't think they should.
Yeah.
More often than not, it's because maybe they're nervous or maybe they're just exploring or just being kids.
Communication, we're trying to learn how to communicate with each other. And it's hard. Like, we're trying, as adults, like, I'm trying to learn how to communicate with you still. And so trying to communicate with my child who doesn't fully even understand it yet. Sometimes it's like two people speaking two different languages, and it's just really frustrating. And, like, I can totally relate to the times where you're just like, you can't even control it sometimes, which is why I commend you for being able to kind of step back. And because typically what happens is I'm getting better at it, but I lose my cool, and my form of losing my cool is I get loud. And I grew up in a house where if someone was upset, they were screaming. It was always how we talked. It was how we talked. It was how we disciplined. Like, we got disciplined. We were always being yelled at. And so for me, like, growing up, it was kind of like that's how you get heard. So if he is not, like, listening to me or whatever, I'll yell. And I feel bad because sometimes I'll look at him and he's just like, who's this crazy lady?
Yeah.
You know? And it just reminds me of, like, what I promised myself that I never would want. And when I was younger, I used to say, I'll never yell at my kids like that.
Yeah.
You know? So I'll get, like, little bursts of that. And then once everything's calmed down, and I've calmed down and he's asleep, then I'm like, oh,
that's when the parenting guilt comes in.
And I will cry, like, little tears and be like, why can't I not control it? Why is it so difficult for me to just put down whatever the fuck I'm doing, focus on him, try to communicate with him? I would do it for a stranger. I wouldn't just start yelling at a stranger. I would talk to them about it.
Yeah.
I would do it for my clients. But it's like that comfort level that's there, and then it's also frustration, and it's, I'm telling you, man, kids really, really know how to really push it.
Yeah.
And they take every ounce of patience out of you. And it's hard. It is by far the hardest thing I've ever done in my life is be a parent.
Oh, definitely. And, you know, it's different than a stranger, though, because we spend so much time with them that it's easy.
It's a comfort level.
And that's the thing is, like, you got to give yourself some credit, too, because you're asking, like, why can't I just set this down or stop working? You know, it's my kid and they deserve my time, but if you set your work down every time that your kid demanded your attention, you wouldn't get a second of work done a day.
Yeah.
Because they demand your attention all the time. So there are times, it requires balance, but it's so fucking challenging to balance because especially because they don't understand. They don't understand if you say, hey, like, I gotta work for the next couple hours, you know, you're gonna play and do school assignments and then we're gonna play after. it just doesn't make sense to them.
Yeah.
So they're going to say, okay, they're going to shake their head, yeah, they're going to go off and they're going to be a great independent player or student for about 4 minutes. And then they're coming back and like, hey mom, hey dad, let's do this. And you're like, fuck man, how many times I gotta tell you? And that's why it gets frustrating, because it's very redundant for us, and that part does require patience, which I think we all lose our patience with at times. You know, because I do practice patience as a parent, but I also know that I lose control of that, you know, just as much as anybody else. For the most part.
Yeah, and like my sister was texting me the other day. She's one of the people that I talk to the most about parenting stuff, because she has 2 little girls too, and so we'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm having a rough day or whatever. And so she had said that she was having a rough day with her daughter, and that she just felt so bad. And I was the one to come in and be like, dude, you got to remember, like, you feel, because she said she feels like a terrible mom. And I'm like, the fact that you feel like a terrible mom
means you give a shit, at least, yeah.
You know, the fact that you even are trying to figure out how to take a step back and breathe, and like, how can I fix this? How can I control this in the next time it happens? Those are all very good signs, because it means that you care.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times parents go through life with doing this with their kids, and they don't ever take that step back, and they never even try to figure out, how can I get on my kid's level? How can I be a better parent? So the fact that we're even trying, you know what I mean? Even thinking about it, I mean, like, the fact that you even have that guilt, it signifies that you're a good parent.
Yeah.
We're just all kind of learning as we go, and it's literally the hardest thing ever. So I don't think that anybody has it figured out.
No, and I mean, I think if you gotten to the point where you kind of break down in tears because you feel guilty, it probably means you're doing a damn good job parenting, because you're reflecting. You're reflecting on something that you know is wrong. You're not always going to do everything right, so you can't expect to do everything right. But to understand that, it's self-ownership.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best thing you can do in any situation is realize, like, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm not doing things correctly, because that's going to force you to at least think of how you can change. Mm-hmm. And who knows, maybe the next time you do it the exact same way and you feel bad, then you start crying again.
There's going to be a certain point where you're going to figure it out a little bit, at least a little bit at a time.
Yeah, you're not always going to get it right, and sometimes you might get it wrong a few times in a row, and that's still okay.
You just got to keep trying.
Yeah. And one thing also to keep in mind with that is it never gets easier, because parenting a 1-year-old is different than parenting a 2-year-old. It's different than parenting a 3-year-old. Our son is doing new things all the time, where it's either good or bad or in between, and it's just the dynamic is always changing. Mm-hmm. You know, parenting him now is different than it was a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. Parenting him as a 5-year-old with a 1-year-old sister is just, there's so many things that go into it that
it's like
really...
Once you feel like you kind of figured it out, they change.
Yeah.
And then, or you throw another one in the mix, and then that'll, mess up, but that'll change the dynamic of how everything is going. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What did some of these people on Instagram ask?
So the main thing right now that I'm seeing is a lot of people are really struggling with balancing homeschooling, which is something that was, for us also last week specifically, was one of the harder weeks with Cruz. So I can totally relate to that. I know that this, the whole COVID thing has made things so difficult, and people are, expected to work and provide for their families, but also step in and be the teacher. And I don't know what parents do when they have multiple grades, because some parents have an elementary school, high schooler.
My client Amber has 3 different grades.
Yeah. We have one, kindergartner.
Yeah.
And we even have a pretty flexible school schedule in terms of how we educate him, and it's so difficult.
Yeah, well, I'd say that it's definitely we chose to homeschool him, and I plan to continue to homeschool him after the COVID stuff is over, because I want to spend all of my days with him. What we're doing right now is going to the skate park, coming home, trying to get some schoolwork done, and that's what we'll talk about here in a second. But then, hanging out, watching TV, whatever, making lunch, him watching TV while I work. I love living that life, because I'd hate to send him away for 8 hours a day. And that's not to say you're a bad person if you're doing that. I get it. We're all in this, we all have the circumstances we do. I'm just going to continue homeschooling after this is over. For people who are currently homeschooling, it's kind of gnarly to even think about, because you're probably finally going to get a great routine down, and then your kids are going to go back to school. So like, what I would say in that situation, if I was in that situation right now where I was only homeschooling because of COVID, I honestly wouldn't even worry too much about it. You know, it is what it is. I would almost just try and enjoy that time with my kids.
Yeah, but it's not for a lot of homeschoolers. They can't. They have Zoom calls they have to be on, and they have curriculum they have to follow, and they're in school still. They're not homeschooling the way we're homeschooling, which is where we don't really have to show up anywhere or provide proof or anything.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of what people are complaining about is having to work from home while also distant learning or helping with their kids with distance learning, which I could see that being very difficult because I work from home fully. So having crews home on top of that has been very hard for me. And my home is kind of like, it's where I work, but it's also like my little, when they're gone, it's kind of like my little time. It's my space. It's where I put my music on or my podcast, and I work, and I'm in the zone, and I'm doing my own thing. But then when Corey and Cruz are here for the majority of the day, or they're in and out, it like throws me off too. So it's hard for me to even get that balance going. So I could see how people would be struggling with having, like, when is it time for me to work? And then your kids are still, if your kids are there, they're always going to need you and want you. So it's always going to be a distraction, you know?
Yeah.
And then on adding homeschool on top of that and having to teach them, and like ours again, it's a little bit different because we can teach them whatever we want, whatever curriculum we want for that day.
Yeah.
Other kids have to be like on their Zoom calls and do their meetings on and off all day and stuff. And
well, first of all,
because I don't know, that's
all I'm gonna say is if they were forcing our son to be on Zoom calls, they were, and we took action. If I wanted him to stay in the school district, like if I wanted him to continue to go to whatever school he was going to, I'd write them a letter. Yeah, look, you can send me some fucking PowerPoints, and I'll go over it with him. I'm not having my kid on a Zoom call because I can't do more than like 35 minutes on a Zoom call myself before I start fucking YouTubing shit and just having my volume down so they can't hear. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm an adult, I'm a professional. Like, these are professional meetings in regards to a business I own. I can't sit for more than 35 minutes without just completely like writing it off, and it's very unrealistic for a kid, and it's going to cause a lot of stress to them. So I would first of all like try to figure out how to make that a non-factor. Write the principal and be like, hey, he's not fucking doing the Zoom classes. Send me PowerPoint. Like, figure out something.
Or if you have to, maybe do pull them out until things get back to normal and do untraditional homeschooling, which is where you have you do your own thing. And it's a form of homeschooling and it's legal. It's totally fine. But you can basically teach your kid however you feel is best. And if that's through workbooks, then cool. If that's through outside play or taking them to the museum or something, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, you might have to get a little creative, but I think the best thing you can do is truly just give yourself a little bit of grace and be okay with if he's not perfect, if he's not making every class, if you cannot run a perfect structured program. This is not perfect. This life we're living right now is nowhere near normal or perfect. So I guess just doing the best that you can, easier said than done, because while we're in it, it's stressful. And with Cruz, like last week we were going over his letters or something, and he just was, I mean, I'm telling you, it was probably like 10 minutes. That was not even like he was doing it for very long, but he like just could not focus, and Corey was getting frustrated, and so I started getting frustrated, and of course that's going to make Cruz more stressed out. So we all kind of need to like take a step back and be like, okay, let's revisit this at a different time. It's just, it is difficult, and I don't think that there's any one solution to it other than going into it with very little expectation, because if you have little expectation, then you know it's hard to disappoint. I don't know if you have anything to add to that. No, it's just hard.
Absolutely, and like I said, it's different for us because we're choosing to homeschool, so we need to do it effectively. If I wasn't choosing to homeschool and I was trying to work a full-time job and have my kid, you know, be forced to homeschool, like I said, I would make sure that, you know, if I had to have his Zoom class playing in the background while he's watching TV, I wouldn't even care at that point. I think I'd try to make sure that he's learning the things that he needs to learn. A lot of things in school I don't think are really that necessary to learn. But it's definitely, I think we're finally getting into a routine of it now. The past few days have gone really well, and we're structuring it to where things are scheduled. But one thing I personally have noticed is that in order for me to effectively homeschool him, and I'm talking like an hour a day worth of decent learning, I have to pretty much release all expectations myself. So when it comes to my work, I'm either up late at night working, I'm doing it on Saturdays and Sundays, because thinking that you can work a full-time job at home while also just watching your kid is fucking hard, let alone teaching them. So you kind of, again, and this kind of goes back to me talking about us sacrificing, not them. Like my kids' education shouldn't have to sacrifice. So I'm going to sacrifice my entrepreneurship. Her and I are all about growing our business and, you know, thriving as entrepreneurs. And guess what? That's going to have to go on pause so that my son can get taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And just really coming to terms with that is the only way that I've even had any success with homeschooling him, because if I try to succeed in both, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, we've had to really tag team and say, you know, we need a schedule, because at first Corey was taking Cruz to the gym with him, and Corey was gone all day with Cruz at the gym.
Yeah.
So they packed up in the morning and then they took off. And so he would even do school at the gym, right?
We would try.
He would try. And then that wasn't working out, so then Corey's like, okay, we're going to come home for part of the day and we're going to do it part here, and then whatever. One thing leads to another. It's just, it's too hard. So we're juggling different schedules around, trying to see which one's going to fit for this time being. And right now what we're doing is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Corey is at the gym with Cruz. And then Tuesday, Thursday, I'm home with him all day. That's actually not the current one. That was our last one.
Mm-hmm.
Our current one is now Cruz never goes to the gym during the day. And Corey will only be at the gym when he has his clients. So now he's here with Cruz and they do their homeschooling on their days. And then now I'm going to be doing my portion of homeschooling with him on my days. So that will free up some of his time. So we kind of have to like tag team it.
We have the flexibility to really create a gnarly schedule, and even at that, it's very stressful and very challenging for us. I think, honestly, I think the only way to effectively homeschool, if you're not both entrepreneurs and willing to pull out your hair for a few weeks fucking straight figuring it out, is to be a full-time stay-at-home parent homeschooler. Because, like I said, you can't have the expectations of working an 8-hour day while also homeschooling your kid. It's unrealistic.
Something's got to give,
Something's got to give, and I think most parents care enough about their children to school them. But again, the COVID lockdowns and the madness that's going on is temporary. Hopefully, who the fuck knows?
And so also got to pay their bills. So I could see
having the expectations of school, or less expectations of school, is probably
right. So maybe just decrease. You might have to decrease a little bit of both. Like decrease your prioritizing your own workload, because yes, you got to pay the bills, but you also have to educate your child. So, and they're both very, very important. So you have to, it's like a teetering game where you have to kind of like balance it out and try to figure out what's going to work best. And I'm not sure what the answer is. Like I said, I don't know, because this is really tough for us and we have a lot of flexibility. So
kind of got to go for like 75% schooling, 75%
set the bar a little lower
work.
For your expectations, and just be grateful for what you get done. And that's that.
Yeah.
You know?
And one last thing to remember is that is that you're not the only one with this problem. We're not the only one with problems right now.
Literally, I have pages of people saying
the whole fucking world is affected by COVID. And, you know, I don't think there's a right answer in this situation. Go with your gut. If your gut tells you to quit your job and focus on schooling your kid the full time, hope that your landlord doesn't, have some forgiveness. And that's a choice you got to make. If you want to say, you know what, for the next 6 months, you get fucking video game time all day, so daddy and mommy can work. You know what? We won't personally judge you. My kid plays a fuck ton of video games right now.
Way more screen time than we would have ever thought we would have had.
We never planned on it. We never planned on him being on the screen as much.
We gotta do sometimes.
Exactly. So we're doing what we got to do while also figuring out a plan for the future.
Yeah.
But it's a temporary situation, so if you temporarily have to feel like a shitty parent for letting your kid play video games or be on YouTube while you're working,
we're all just trying to survive here.
It is what it is.
And if you can afford it, I've thought about this too. I'm like, well, maybe we hire a tutor or someone that comes in for an hour every so often, every day, every other day, whatever. And that person who is the expert, can do it. But you got to be able to have the financial means for that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I'll move on to the next question, or the next person's issue, and it's figuring out how to do it all, in quotes, and figure out my me time. So figuring out how to do it all.
You don't ever figure out how to do it all. Like I said, you got to sacrifice. Something's got to give. And
what's important and what's on the priority list.
Yeah, and I can honestly relate to that question a lot because I was trying to be homeschooling dad. I was trying to run a gym. I was trying to train my clients. I was trying to be a professional fighter, go to school.
I don't think people know you. He goes to school full time too.
I wear a lot of hats, and
then cater to his crazy hormonal wife.
I've learned that if you have the expectations of doing that, and I actually just talked to my client the other day about this because she's a young lady who takes on a lot. She's got a great career. She's going to school, along with some other things in her life, and I'm just like, look, you can't have the expectations that you're going to excel in all of them. That's the thing is, I have a lot of pride. So when I go to school, I like to get 4.0. Well, my grades right now are C's. But I've had to come to terms with that because if I want to focus on getting A's, then my work life's got to suffer or my homeschooling life's got to suffer. Don't try to do it all. Mm-hmm. Think about the things that are most important to you and the things that you don't need, save them for a later date. If getting a degree is something you'd like to do, but it's burning you out right now because you have so many other things to take care of, put school on pause. My mom got her nursing degree when she was like 44 years old. It's never too late, and she's had a very successful nursing career since then, for like the last 13 years now, I think. Release those expectations.
I think that's going to be the takeaways.
Yeah, always.
The takeaway is release the expectations.
Always.
I think that's going to be a common theme through everything. You just got to release the expectations of what else are you going to do? You can't win it all. So you have to.
The thing is, you only have so much time.
Yeah.
You only have so much time. As far as getting me time, I definitely think that's something that you should prioritize first and foremost. And what I tell my clients or like when I'm coaching people is to do it first thing in the morning. It's so common for somebody to wake up and go straight into stress mode. They either wake up and immediately start getting ready for work, or they wake up because their kid's crying, so they immediately go into
a stressful situation,
taking care of somebody else. Their day starts with servicing others, and servicing others is a good thing, but it can also burn you out as well.
You gotta service yourself first.
Yeah, so I say that if you're not getting your me time at night after the whole family goes to sleep, and maybe you are, and maybe it's kind of sucks because you're worn out, start setting your alarm 30 minutes before your kid wakes up and do something then. It may not be ideal, but again, given the circumstances, we can't go for peak efficiency. Something's got to give.
And it does really make a difference because I know I was listening to your podcast with Colin, and he had mentioned that Hannah will get up, Colin's wife, will get up at 5:30 every morning, an hour and a half before their daughter Ryder wakes up, so that she can get ready, like do her hair and her makeup for the day without interruptions. And that's when she can like listen to her podcast or her YouTube videos or whatever. And it's kind of like her time.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I used to do that like a long time ago. I used to get up and get ready for the day. And now my alarm is my baby screaming mommy from down the hall. And it's usually around 7:30 or 8. And then I get up and I look like, a hot mess all day. And I feel like a hot mess all day because I didn't take that time in the morning to put myself together. And so a couple days last week, I actually had gotten up a little bit earlier and I put myself together. I actually put makeup on and I straightened my hair. And I swear to God, it changed the entire day. It made me feel so much better. I felt more productive. It's like you look good, you feel good, and you feel good, you look good. Like it really makes a really big difference if you do take that time. And maybe it's not getting ready in the morning for you. Maybe it's reading or yoga, working out, whatever. But it does make a really, really big difference.
Yeah.
To take out that time.
Absolutely, and I'm a firm believer that investing in yourself is much better than investing time in a job. I think it's much more important than making money. The money's going to be made. You're going to have a job. You're going to work. That's going to come. But if you don't take the time to invest in yourself, you may be miserable. You may have poor mental health. And just like what the way I coach my clients in the topic of health and fitness is, I tell them to do their workout in the morning before any other excuses come up, before they're too tired, before more important priorities get in the way. When you wake up at 5 in the morning and you go work out, there's nothing to distract you. There's nothing email's not going to pop up on your, in your headphones that you're going to have to stop working for because nobody else is at work.
Yeah,
they're not going to be emailing you. And then, like I said, you're not going to come up with excuses throughout the day. You're not going to go through a whole day of work, be too tired to go to the gym, it's already done, and you started off your day with great energy. Working out is me time, so you started your day off focusing on yourself, and now you can go service others without feeling some sort of void or some deficiency in me time. Do the same thing if it's not training. If you like to meditate, if you like to read or journal, or even just scrolling Instagram, like wake up 30 minutes to an hour before your alarm normally goes off or before your kids wake up and just fucking chill.
Like whatever it is you want to do. Even if it's like, for some moms, it's have a cup of coffee that's fucking hot.
Paint your nails.
Like sit there in silence with, no crying kids or anything. Those mornings and those times that you have to yourself really make a huge difference. And I'm the first one to say that I've lost my groove on that, but when I do it, it feels so great. And it really does impact my day in such a positive way. So it's just carving out, if your you time is important to you, then you carve out that time and you prioritize it before anything else. And then you go about your day.
Yeah.
And then as far as doing it all, like you said when the question was originally asked, you don't do it all. And I get this all the time. People will ask, how do you do it all? How do you run businesses and have a great marriage and do all these things? And I'm like, I have a lot of fucking help. Like, I don't know if you guys think that I just am superwoman and I'm out here doing all the things, but Corey and I have a lot of help. We help each other, for one. I have a very hands-on, in the business husband. He is he is very much involved. He's literally like my right-hand man. I'm juggling things and throwing things on his plate, and he's taking them off mine. Like, he shares all responsibilities. There's no dish that he's too good to touch. There's no doctor's appointment that he can't take the kids to. There's pretty much everything is very 50-50, and we've created that. And I've been very vocal about I need you to help me with this, which is something that I learned, once we had kids, and I learned through therapy, is just to be very direct and ask for help. So having a helpful partner. If you don't, maybe start looking into opening that line of communication with them and letting them know, hey, I could really use your help in this area. So outsource as much as you can. We don't do everything ourselves. We have a lot of help. I have, with the businesses, we have assistants that help us. And I'm talking, it could be my niece, who I'm able to pay $10 to come help me fold some shirts. And it could be the person who cleans my house, does my laundry. Sometimes we have a meal prep company that we order from to eat healthy. We don't do it all. And I think most people see it and they think wow, if they're doing it all, then that means I should be able to.
Yeah.
But you're not comparing the reality of it. You're comparing your normal life with my life that has a ton of helping hands.
Yeah. Not only that, but people don't see the fails. Like I said, I was trying to be a professional fighter. I was trying to be a student. I was trying to do multiple things, but and I post on my Instagram page, I post about the gym, I post about my clients, but sometimes I lose clients because I'm fucking sucking at my job and I'm not providing them a good service, or I'm not communicating with them enough. Lately, for the past year or so, I've really prioritized my clients, so I haven't really had that problem. But there's been times where my training business starts to kind of take a shit because I'm being pulled in too many different directions, and I don't go on Instagram and I'm like, hey, my business is doing shitty, guys. Just want to let you know. But I just figure out a way to fix it. I figure out a way, I learn from it and I adjust, and then I go from there. Or sometimes the gym is hurting. Sometimes none of my trainers are happy and they all fucking hate me and the gym's dirty and we're out of toilet paper. That's fucking, but I don't even know because I'm worried about schooling my kid and trying to be a fighter.
We're all over the place, just like you guys, dude.
But we fail all the time. That's the thing that's, I think, very important for you guys to understand is if you're trying to do too many things, you're going to, some things you might do well in others, but you might fail. On the flip side, you're not really going to be a master of anything, though. That's for sure.
Definitely not.
If you're a jack of all trades or you're taking too much on, like I said, everything's going to be, at best, getting 75% attention. And at 75% attention, you can do well. You can do good, but you're not going to do great.
Yeah.
So if you want to do great at something, focus on one thing and just do that.
Whatever's most important.
That's why I say if you're worried about homeschooling your kid, quit your job and just fucking put all your energy into that. If you don't mind your kid being dumb for 6 months, then fucking tell them to play games and watch YouTube and continue working so you can put all your energy into work.
Do the best you can. At the end of the day, that's what we can do. That's all we can do is the best. Like we can't beat ourselves up over and over and like constantly. I think social media has a really big part of this. Is it's that comparison game where people see what other people are doing, but they're not seeing the whole picture. They're not seeing the help that people have. They're not seeing that mom who has the really cool homeschool room with like the weather chart and shit up on the wall. That mom's probably a full-time homeschool mom. And I'm over here comparing it to where I'm like operating multiple businesses and trying to figure out how to manage it all. Like we're not comparing each other, apples to apples. It's just not the reality of it. So ultimately what I think is most important is your happiness and the happiness of your children, and everything else comes second. So whatever's going to make you guys feel good at the end of the day is going to keep you alive and keep you in a good mental health, space, then do that. And don't beat yourself up so much. Cut yourself some slack.
Yeah, and try to relieve some of the pressure, or like, let go of some of the pressure, because
parent pressure.
When I think about it, if I was living with my family under a bridge, that would kind of suck. But as long as my family still loved me and I still had a good bond with them, that to me is much more important than living in like a mansion but never seeing my kids, or living, you know what I'm saying? So like the fact that I know I would be happy with nothing but my family really allows me to release some of that pressure that I have to excel at everything,
Yeah.
I'm going to do it my best. I'm going to set a good example for my kids, and I'm going to fucking try my hardest and, do the things I love. But when something's not doing so well, when one factor of my life is not doing so well, I still have so much more to be proud of. So, don't put too much pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
To meet some grand expectations. If you're in a family, if you're a parent, if you're going to be a parent soon, just appreciate that bond you have with your family, and let nothing else really matters.
Yeah.
But you do have the opportunity to make great things in life happen, so continue pursuing them.
Right.
Easy answer, right? Optimism, motherfuckers.
The other thing you can do is ask for help, because you'd be surprised that people will help you. And I know, like, I have friends that if I'm really struggling with, let's just say I'm struggling with Cruz or whatever, and I'm talking with them back and forth, and she's like, hey, bring him over. Like, my son would love to have a fucking buddy. Like, I would love for a play date because I want my kid to be entertained by another kid. We're all parent. If you're a parent, there's just a special bond that parents have, because we all
special understanding.
There's an empathy there that this is something that people who are not parents, it's the one thing you probably won't ever be able to relate until you become a parent, is there's just a knowing. And like when you're in the grocery store and you see a kid flipping out and the mom's like stressing out, and you just want to be like, it's okay, girl, nobody's looking, it's fine, do your thing. Like, you can relate so hard. And so when you have these conversations with your friends or other mom friends or whatever, it's okay to be like, dude, I'm feeling like a piece of shit right now, and I really just need a talk, or I really just need some help, or do you want to go on a walk, or like there's you can ask for help, and more times more often than not, people are going to be willing to help out, and they can relate.
Hell yeah.
Let me see what else we got here. Wondering if I am spending enough quality time with my kids. That one is
You're probably asking that because you're feeling some parenting guilt.
Yeah, it probably does tie back to the parenting guilt, and I think
I'm gonna say the answer is no, and I'm gonna say one, because if you're questioning it, you're probably not. You're probably feeling guilty because you're not. But two, I'm gonna say that none of us are. I think that the family it's a very sacred bond, and the family unit, in my opinion, should be together 24/7. Like, it should be where in our inherent nature, the dad should take the son out hunting for food while the mom takes the fucking daughter out to go get water and do the laundry. And then, dad and son come home, they cook, they eat together, they don't have social media, they sit by the fire at night, and they do whatever they have to do to entertain each other, right? But we're so far evolved as humans with our technology that the family unit doesn't really work that way anymore. There's so many things that are pulling us in different directions, distracting us. So I'm going to say that it's safe to say, in my opinion, that no, none of us are truly spending enough quality time. Now, that's not to say that the time you do have with your family can't be spent as efficiently as possible. But I think that the way our societies operate now, it's kind of hard to say that any of us are, you know?
Yeah, and I think that you have a very high, I think that you have a very high expectation for quality time with our kids specifically. Like, I kind of feel like there's been times where you could solidly say, yeah, I do spend enough time with my kids. Because if I see and I know how much time you spend with the kids, and when you're spending time with the kids, you're, for the most part, you're not on your phone, you're not distracted, you're straight up like a kid yourself playing, and you're skateboarding and you're doing things with them, and you're like letting them jump on you, and that, to me, that's quality time. And so I feel like you could say, like, I feel happy with the amount of time that I've spent with my kids. And most people, I don't think, can say that, because most people are kind of how I am, where I feel like if I'm in the same room with you, then I'm spending time with you. And that's not the case. You know what I mean? Because I have those time, or I always feel like, do I spend quality time? And I have to make a really, really conscious effort of being like, if I'm going to hang out with Cruz right now and play Fortnite with him, then I need to not be worried about business or being on Instagram or whatever. I need to really focus on just hanging out with just him and making that quality time quality. It doesn't have to be spending time with him all day long, but if I'm going to designate 15 minutes to like play with him, then just play with him. And I think that when you do that, you do a good job of that. And you've even said in the past, like, I'm comfortable with how much time I spend with my kids.
I'm comfortable, but
you still wish it was more?
In my opinion, it's one of those answers where
like it's never enough?
It's never enough. You know what I'm saying?
Well, certainly in their eyes, it's never enough.
So I would say that's the question you need to ask yourself, though, is what she just said about me is, can you say, you know, I'm happy with the amount of time I spend with my kids? Because if you can answer that yes, then sure, the answer is yes. You spend enough quality time. There's no... Yeah,
like no one's going to be able to tell you.
There's no book that tells you there's no right or wrong answer to that. It's not a multiple choice where you can get it wrong or right. It's do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel like as a parent you're involved enough?
Yeah.
But like I said, I think the fact that you're questioning it means that you probably deep down inside feel like you have room for improvement.
Right. And that's how I feel. I feel 100% like if there's an area that I could improve on as a mother, it would be to spend more quality time with my children. And knowing that not, just being in the same room with them doesn't mean, or just watching TV together doesn't mean that I'm spending quality time. I can spend time with my kids without it being quality, and that's kind of, it's not going to be as effective as I want it to be. And I don't want to look back, and I resonate with that question a lot, because I feel like I don't want to look back later and be like, fuck, I didn't even hang out with them, you know, and now they're older. Is it enough time? Like, I don't know. I spend a lot of time with my kids compared to some parents, but I still have that thought in my head where it could be more.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I think we could all say that, but it comes down to your personal fulfillment.
Yeah. And that does come down to parenting guilt. That's part of it.
Yeah.
Parenting guilt just
But there's no book that says what's the right or wrong answer as to how much quality time is enough. That's circumstantial to each family. Yeah. What are your guys' values? What do you guys value? For me, and you can even ask Alicia, I am a family person. I am
totally
born to be I'm born to be a brother. I'm born to be a son. I'm born to be a husband and a father. Because it's and I guess that goes back to kind of what I was saying about living under a bridge. To me, I don't want to live under a bridge, and I'll work hard to make sure I don't. But if I ever have to work so hard to where I feel like I'm sacrificing too much from my family, then I'll fucking live under the bridge. Yeah. It won't be worth it to me at that point, because that's what I value the most in life, is my family. My wife, my kids, my mom, my uncles, my nieces. You fucking name it, and I love Thanksgiving for that reason.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yep, I mean, we're no professionals here, guys. We're kind of just winging it, just like everybody else.
These are just our opinions. There's no right or wrong in many of these situations we're talking about. I'm going to go ahead and read this next one. It is letting kids be online or electronics way too much. And I think, kind of like what I was saying earlier about the current circumstances that we're in as a country and as the entire fucking world, is that's something that's going to have to be accepted in a sense. Having the expectations that your kids can't be on the tablet for more than an hour a day, or whatever your rules are. I think in a perfect world are completely fine and doable. But right now, we don't really have the luxuries of sticking to those because everybody's routine, everybody's plan, and the way we go about living our lives has been kind of turned upside down. So I would say give yourself a little more credit. The fact that again these questions show that you guys care. So it's pretty awesome
because we all care.
Yeah, you care about it, and it's challenging because you're in a situation where you kind of have to let them have the damn electronics, depending on how old they are and what your situation is. If you're both full-time working parents, there's really no way around it. So release the expectation. Know it's temporary. Right, like I said, right now my kid's playing a lot of video games, but that's because we don't really have a choice. We're still adjusting to the homeschooling thing, and it's getting a lot better. He's also getting a lot older, so I can kind of let him go out and play in the backyard without even being there with him. But it's a phase that we went through, and I mean, if it's like during dinner time, I think there's boundaries. I think it's very important for the family to be present at dinner, to put electronics away. So if that's the case, then I would say, in my opinion, that would be problematic, and you just got to start kind of like dropping the hammer when the time comes. If your kid wants to be on his PlayStation Portable or whatever while you guys are eating dinner, that might just have to be something that you're stern on, and you say, hey, look, put it down or you're done for a week. And stick to your guns. But if it's just because parents are working and you don't have somebody to watch your kid and school's over or whatever, I would say just accept these kinds of things. And there's not too much we can do right now other than to continue to push on. But a lot of good questions. There's no way in hell we're getting through all of them. A lot of them seem, I don't want to say like trivial problems, but very common problems, like how do you have patience? How do you
do it all?
How do you do it all? How do you get to the gym? This and that. And again, everything's circumstantial right now, but some people were feeling like they're bad parents, or it sounds like a lot of parenting guilt as well. And
that's a very common theme.
Yeah, I would just say that the fact that you guys have questions means you care. I'll tell you guys, like I tell my personal training clients, is be aware. Be aware of the problem. Start implementing the steps to fix it, and then give yourself some room to fail. If you try something, if you notice something that you think is a problem and you want addressed, and you start addressing it, and it doesn't get fixed right away, or even if it gets worse, it's like, be okay with that little bit of failure. You know what I'm saying? I get it, it's a little bit more challenging when it's our kids, but I think if you stick to some principal values that you have, mine being that I'm always going to sacrifice and not my kids, I think you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Parenting is, once you become a parent, it's new, and it never
stops being new.
It never stops being new, because like I said, parenting a 5-year-old is different than parenting a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Parenting a 6-year-old is different than parenting a 10-year-old.
And even if you have two at the same age at different times, like, they're different kids. So as soon as you think you have it figured out and you're like, okay, I understand my kid now, they're going to change, and then you're going to have a kid that's also 5 years old, but totally different. So
I mean, not only that, like when Cruz was 3 years old, we were raising a 3-year-old by himself. When Stevie's 3 years old, we're gonna have to raise a 3-year-old that has a 7-year-old brother. Like, the dynamic is so different. Just be proud that you give a shit enough to listen to a parenting podcast.
That's what I was telling my sister too. I was like, the fact that we send each other articles on how to talk to our children, or we're following pages on Instagram about how to keep our toddlers busy with things that are educating them at the same time, and like how to create a fucking sensory bin, and like, I don't know, I don't think that my parents did that. They weren't sharing articles of how to be a better parent to each other, with each other. No, just to them. I think that now it's actually, we're in a time where learning how to be a better parent is actually pretty cool. Like, people are into it, and there's people's jobs are solely on teaching you how to, do the best you can as being a parent, and it's a lot more talked about. It's not so like just figure it out behind closed doors. Like you said, you're listening to a podcast right now that's talking strictly about parenting, so that alone you should feel good about yourself for that, because we are doing our best to at least get educated as much as we can, and sharing our experiences with other people to see what other people have done, and implementing what we can.
You give a shit, you're trying to learn, release expectations, stick to some core values, and just keep on fucking rocking.
Yeah.
You know, there's not much more you can do. Hold your head up high though, because you're on one of the most, in my opinion, like one of the greatest, most awesome fucking, most challenging and rewarding journeys you could ever be on in life. So I think anybody can be a parent. Any dude can knock a chick up, and any chick can fucking give birth.
Something like
whatever
that.
You want to, I don't know.
Like
but it takes a good person to want to
step
improve
into the role and to be that person. And it's never too late. By the way, like, it's never too late to step into the role and be like, hey, I'm going to start being
I've been fucking up, and I'm ready to not fuck up no more.
Maybe you haven't been the best parent thus far, and part of that could be like, I feel guilty. I already fucked up for 10 years, so, like, why should I start now? Because you can, and the fact that you even think about starting now should be the indicator that you should, and you absolutely need to do it, because it's never too late. Just like we say, it's never too late to go to school and follow your dreams, or to do whatever you want with your life. It's never too late to be a good parent and to decide from this day forward, I'm going to be there for my kids, and I'm going to be the parent that I didn't have, or whatever. Like, it's truly never too late to be a better person.
No, not at all.
Especially for your kids, because they need you.
They deserve it.
And they deserve it. They absolutely deserve it. Your kids, none of our kids asked to be here.
Yeah.
You know, so it is our duty to fulfill.
Absolutely.
And to be a good, role model and be a good parent to them. So.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this podcast, hold your head up high, because you give a fuck. Like I said, anybody can do the deed of creating, but I think it takes a special person to. It's the most challenging thing in the world. I mean, I see people try their fitness journeys all the time. Like, they get started on a fitness journey and they quit because it's too fucking hard, it's too stressful, it's too confusing. And even though they love themselves and they want to look good and they want to feel good, they quit because it's too much for them to handle. Well, parenting is 10 times harder. It's 10 times more stressful. It's 10 times more discouraging. But you're hanging on and you're still trying to get better. And that's just a fucking phenomenal thing. I think it takes a special kind of person to go through that and to continue to try after failures and after discouragement, after the parenting guilt.
Yeah.
I'm fucking proud of myself, and you should be proud of yourself.
Me too, yeah. Absolutely.
We should all be proud of ourselves.
Group hug.
Yeah, but that's it for parenting tonight.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a problem.
You want to talk about a problem?
Yeah, there's like 600 of you motherfuckers listening to this podcast, and
I want to talk about overall.
only 5 have written a review.
No. Oh, yeah.
On
Apple
Podcast.
Yeah.
And
5 reviews and 15 5 stars.
I know damn well that we tell you guys to go leave a review.
Why aren't you listening? You guys are just like our children.
Well, it just baffles me, because you're putting on a podcast, but you're clearly not listening. Like, that's what you're supposed to do with a podcast, is listen.
Yeah, motherfucker.
We told you to write reviews. Go write reviews. If you're on YouTube, comment on that shit and press the thumbs up. What is it? Subscribe, like, press thumbs up.
It depends on what platform. But you know what the fuck to do.
Show us some love. We love you guys. We'll see you next week.
See you next week, guys.